The invisible hordes of online feminist bullies. Gamergaters say social justice warriors want to destroy video games. That's a myth. An opinion piece written by Megan, I'm going to go with Condis, and published by Al Jazeera. It seems there is a storm. Crazy academics are just falling from the sky. There's so much bullshit here, and I've seen it floating around Twitter. You know, for example, her saying that Total Biscuit is a spokesperson for Gamergate, or that those critical of violent games will not get them censored, when a petition got over 40,000 signatures and led to Target Australia pulling Grand Theft Auto 5. You know, deliberately limiting adults' access to creative media on the grounds that it is morally unsuitable for them. I call that censorship. Or when she effectively said that you need to not ignore or silence critics in order to help games grow as an art form. Therefore, ignore critics if they happen to seem gamergatey. Just the usual absolute brain death. But I am not going to pick through this article like I normally would. There is one point I haven't seen made, and it is fucking hilarious. Let's look at what she says about, you know, gamergaters and their thoughts about Rust. Let the creators create. Another tack Gamergate has tried is to argue that the game developer's artistic integrity must be sacrosanct. The creator should be the final arbiter over what content is included in the game, and anyone who doesn't like it should create their own games. Except, as Musa pointed out in his article, this logic was not applied when game developer Gary Newman made his survival game Rust more diverse, randomizing the race of the avatars that would be tied to a player's profile. Yet far from supporting Newman for making a bold artistic choice, Gamergaters, some upset at being assigned black avatars, instead railed against the decision, demanding that the developer restore the game to the mode they preferred, one in which all avatars had white skin, or that he introduced choice into the game so that no one would be forced to play as a person of color. People have rightly pointed out that this sounds ludicrous without a source, but there is a source. It was Tariq Musa's article. Let's have a look at what he said. Many white gamers expressed concern, as Megan Condis documents, disliking being forced to think about race and having to play someone who didn't match their own race. The problem is lack of freedom of choice, one claimed. Megan Condis, that name rings a bell. Oh yeah, it's the person who wrote this opinion piece. So her proof of quote-unquote gamergaters being upset about playing as black people and somehow being hypocritical as one entity rather than individuals is someone else talking about something she wrote where she doesn't mention Gamergate or gamergaters. Beautiful. But does she even think that's a problem? Something that maybe should be disclosed even? Yes, she does. She has actually more or less written this piece before, but published it on her own blog. #GamesSoWhite. Tales of quote-unquote historical fantasy and entitlement. Full disclosure, the piece I describe in this post cites my recent article on Al Jazeera America, so I'm what you might call an interested party. So why, when she was previously writing about it, did she need to disclose that, but now when she's relying on it as a source? It's not worth mentioning. In fact, the link to the article is just a single word hyperlink. Unlike the piece that Tariq used as a source and then she used his use of her source as a source, this one does mention Gamergate, and it even uses individuals as examples. I'll read you from the mention of Gamergate to the end of the article. And so the Gamergaters switch tactics. They argue that critics of The Witcher 3 would be better off to spend their time creating diverse games of their own, rather than demanding that one particular game developer alter their artistic vision to please the SJWs and the PC police. Her evidence is, at Shredding Ruin says, so people are complaining about a lack of diversity in Witcher 3, play a different game. Or, I don't know, make your own. At Scrump Monkey says, I say no. I say we are global gamers and global game devs and we can make what the fuck we want. Game so white? Go make some alternatives. At Ninja Style says, to everyone bitching about Game So White, why don't you make your own shit? There's loads of tools on Steam for you. Don't like The Witcher 3? Go make your own game. Except, this wasn't the logic employed by those complaining about the addition of people of color to Rust. Why were these gamers so reluctant to support Gary Newman's vision for his own game? If they didn't like Rust, then shouldn't they stop complaining and go make their own game the way they want? Especially when the game is in the early access phase, meaning that those who purchased it knew that it was under development and subject to change and experimentation. In other words, the issue is not that gamers are defending The Witcher 3. I actually find myself somewhat sympathetic to those who argue that it is unfair to single out this one particular game from amongst many, considering that it is an adaptation of an existing work. The issue is that Gamergate supporters, hijackers, trolls, are so willing to completely reverse course in the arguments they make in order to defend and protect white male dominance in gaming culture. They are not arguing in favor of any particular philosophical vision of what gaming is or should be. Rather, they are simply employing any and all available tactics, even those that are, upon further examination, mutually exclusive, to ensure that the opinions, concerns, and complaints of anyone who doesn't look like them go unheeded. First, those people say, well, Rust is bad because it makes me play as a black person and I don't want to. And then they say, you should respect The Witcher's creator's vision. Wow, pretty damning. Those guys are racist hypocrites. But there's a little problem. I looked at the examples she gave of people defending The Witcher. 2 of them had never mentioned Rust before on their Twitter accounts. They may not even know that that game exists. So unless she's managed to stalk them to another venue, she has no idea what they think about Rust. The other person, Scrump Monkey, is actually a friend of mine, although I'm unable to contact him at the moment because he's moved and doesn't have an internet connection. When I did a search, the only 2 times he's mentioned Rust are to point out that Torek Musa reported on it while also saying he knows basically nothing about Steam, and to say that he thinks Torek Musa attacked Rust. I can't contact him right now, but I couldn't imagine Scrump being against Gary Newman doing what he wants. This person writing for Al Jazeera believes that if a stranger says something and you say something that isn't compatible with it, you have been a hypocrite. That is fucking crazy. You think The Witcher's creators should have creative freedom? Well, this random anon on the internet said that Gary Newman shouldn't have creative freedom. Gotcha there. What the actual fuck? Is this person simply a compulsive liar? Or do they genuinely believe that Gamergate is some sort of organization where everyone you could say is involved reads from the same sheet? So that if someone you said it was involved with Gamergate said one thing, and then another person you could say is involved said another, that's Gamergate being inconsistent. That is madness. She thinks that if you are on Twitter and using an anime avatar, you are running Gamergate tactics, and can be analyzed to see how this terrorist group is changing its strategy. People like this probably need help more than they need a platform. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions.